Welcome to Meticulous Creations. If you haven't subscribed already, please do and hit that like bell. We'd greatly appreciate it. And also, if you see anything that you think you can do better, let us know that as well. If these videos have an impact on your day and enable you to do a job better, please let us know that as well. We like the encouragement. And as we start off today, we're going to start off with a list of tools today that will help you to get started. Some tools you may have and some you may not. If you've had them, then that's great. If I'm showing you a different model, then that'll help you as well. We'll start out today with the drill, the cordless drill. And my favorite is the 20 volt cordless drill from DeWalt. This is a brushless drill, 1/2 inch. It's an inexpensive one. I've seen it as cheap as $100 and as much as $150. I've also seen it in a combination with the impact driver that goes with it for about between $150 to $160. It's a very good drill, works very, very well, and very handy, and it's light. And I consider it to be female friendly. It's not that heavy. It has a nice balance in your hand. As you can see, it's balancing in the back, not moving at all. One of the things that I like about it is the fact that it has a clutch on it, the clutch that you can adjust. If I'm setting screws and real small screws, I might set it down to a 4. And when it gets down where you want it, you'll hear it pop like that. If I turn around here and I need to drill some drill holes in there, then I can rack it all the way back up to, you'll see the drill bit on the very top. You'll see that right here on the very top, the drill bit. That drill bit tells you that it is locked down completely, and then you can use it for drilling. Another thing that you'll notice is that there's a light in the front of it. So if you're up underneath the shelf or working in a closet and you're trying to see where you're drilling, that light will help you immensely. In the process, very handy tool. One of the things that I found out too with this is that while I'm clutching, I might be drilling and driving at the same time. So if I'm driving, do that. However, if I'm drilling, once you get used to it, then you can just feather the trigger. I call it feathering it. Basically, just barely touch the trigger, and you can walk it in, roll it like that. Okay, very handy. This one comes with a 1.5 volt amp battery. I personally like the 2 amp batteries myself, so I got a package with a couple of 2 amp batteries. My suggestion is, for most work, a 2 amp battery is more than adequate to get anything you need done. These batteries will also work with the bare tool products such as sanders, reciprocating saws. There's even a cordless trim router that these batteries will work in. So, really like this drill. It's very handy. It's very homeowner friendly. Very nice. Our next item on our list is a Graph Gear 1000 by Pentel mechanical pencil. This one's a 5/10 millimeter pencil. I first started using this pencil whenever I was working with the Incra rules for layout lines. It is a very well-built pencil. A lot of YouTubers use this pencil. Really happy with it. Works very well. It has a supported tip on it that keeps it from getting broken off. As I say, when I got the Incra rulers, the pencil that they had, it did not have a supported tip, and when you used it, the tip would snap off. Very happy with it, long lasting. The lead I recommend for it is an HB lead, which is a little bit harder than a 2 lead, and does a very good job. You can use it when you're doing layouts, when you're working off the end of a straight edge or something like that to get a precise mark. Very handy if you ever do get into using a track saw or anything like that, because it'll put a precise mark in there that's smaller than a standard pencil lead, and when you split the line, it puts it right where you want it. Very good product. And we talk about marking. Another thing that I like to use is called a marking knife. The marking knife has a flat back on it and a kerf on one side. Okay, this one has a double kerf on one side and a flat back. This was put out by IBC. Okay, what I like to do with this is when you're marking with a straight edge or something, you can take and lay it right up against the back of that and mark right down like that. Very handy. One of these things that's easily sharpened. You can sharpen it simply by taking and using an emery cloth or something, or if you have an emery board, you can lay it flat on the back of the emery board and run it back and forth and pull any burrs off the back of it. First time I sharpened one of these, it was so sharp, there was a rubber tube that slid over, it literally split the tube. I mean, it was razor sharp. So it's one of those things you can use, but make sure if you have any small children in the house, make sure you keep it put away so they don't get cut with it. Another item that I consider to be really valuable is a steel tape. Now this one is a 16 foot, maybe a little bit long for most people. I recommend that you don't buy more than one steel tape. Keep yourself organized, have your steel tape where you know where it is, so that way you can use the same steel tape every time. Because when you go to shifting from tape to tape, they can be off anywhere from a 36th to a 64th of an inch, and maybe even as much off as an 1/8 of an inch. So if you're using different steel tapes, it's going to throw your measurements off. So if you're using the same steel tape all the time, all your measurements will be the same and everything will match up. Okay? So really handy. This one is a self-lock. So basically when you slide it out like that, it locks into position and you hit the button right here on the top and it comes back. Another thing that I like to remember too of these is when you're closing it, keep your finger down there at the end of it. Don't let it get on the side, but get your finger at the end of it. Let that catch the tip of your tape so that when it comes in, it doesn't beat up the end. The tip gets beat up, then it becomes ineffective and becomes less accurate. Another thing that you can run into too with the steel tape is that if your tip is beat up or you're running across one that is beat up and you're not sure about the measurements, move your measurement out to where it begins at the 1 inch. Start at the 1 inch and move out, and just remember to subtract the 1 inch off the following end, and your measurement should be okay. Very handy tool, works very well. Okay. Another thing too, when you get everything laid out and you're getting ready to drill a hole, this is an automatic center punch. So basically this is one of those, you don't have to beat on it, all you have to do is, where the big red knob is on that, you get it lined up on your hole and push down on it, it will snap, and when it does, it'll give an indent where you want to start your drilling. Okay? I don't use this as much as most people do because I'm really fussy. I use an optic punch instead of this one. And I can show that one later on in other videos. But this is just your basic, household tools that you can use that won't rob the bank. This one is the least expensive of those. Okay? Another thing that I like to use, we all use Allen wrenches. My suggestion for Allen wrenches is instead of using the little Allen wrenches that look like the little crook necks, get the ball drivers, and you'll get them in, and I like getting them in a metric set and a standard set, and the reason for that is because a lot of this stuff gets mixed up. You will have projects where one Allen screw will be metric and the one right next to it will be standard. So if you have both of them, you can use these Allen wrenches, and they basically go in just like a screwdriver, and you snug them up and back them out. And a lot of my tools that I use, I have switched from a flathead or a Phillips head screw to what we call a button head or a flathead socket head screw. With those, I use these to set things up, and it goes in very quickly. Okay, so this is another good thing to remember. Okay, and then of course your scale from your combination square. You can use that if you're drawing on something or something like that. Okay. Another item to add to your arsenal of tools around the house is a good claw hammer. Now this one is a steel handle hammer. It's got a leather grip on it. It's an E-Swing 20 ounce, and it is called a ripping hammer. It has this flat curve in the back, really good for pulling nails, pulling boxes apart. It has a smooth face on it. This is a finishing hammer. If you're going to pick up a hammer for the house, you don't want anything with checks on it. That is called a framing hammer. Those are for putting 2x4s together. So if you're up there trying to put trim together with a framing hammer, you'll just tear your trim all up. And like I said, this one's about a $30 hammer. Steel handle, 20 ounce. Most people like a 16 ounce or lighter. If you're going in for a little really light work, you can probably get away with a 10 ounce or even a 12 ounce hammer. The lighter the hammer, the easier it is for it to work. Very good tool to working around the house. Okay. And as far as for pulling nails, another thing that is really good is a trim. This is a trim bar. If you notice, the back is curved. This part right here, we slip this part in here behind the trim, and then you roll this flat part against the back against the wall. It'll cause the trim to pop loose from the wall. It'll keep you from destroying the trim and also tearing your wall up. Does it very good. And then also on the other side, there's a little cat's paw, so you can kind of dig that into the wood and rip it out that way and pull your nails that way. Another item that is really, really good for pulling nails, and it's for these little tiny pin nails that you can't get anything a hold of. You try and hook onto it with a claw hammer, it just slips right through the wire. It won't even hook it. So you take this and you run here's your nail here. You take and you push it up against there like that, and you clamp it down, and then you just take and roll it back. And what will happen is the nail will roll right over the back of the claw. It's really good for the really small nails that you can't get a hold of with anything else. These will even pull like a 23 gauge nail. Pull them right out. Very handy. And then also another thing is good for is loosening those little tight items and stuff. That it's not a very big pair of vice grips, but for its size, it is very, very valuable. 4 inch or 5 inch is really good for that. Okay. And our final item for the day is the 3/4 inch wood chisel. It's our bench chisel. Now, this one, they use this for setting hinges, cutting mortises, trimming around a tenon, trimming, all kinds of things where you want to make it really nice and flat. I can show you how to do this, but I tell you, there's a person that does a lot better job at sharpening than I can show you, and his name is Rob Kosman. You go to Rob Kosman website, it'll walk you through the whole thing from flattening the back to getting your primary bevel and your secondary and tri-kerf on the end. You can walk it through it to show you exactly how to sharpen that up. Very, very, very handy tool. There again, another tool that is very, very needs to be guarded. Make sure no small children get around it because they can cut themselves really easily with it. But it's a very handy tool. The next items are going to be cutting tools. The first item we're looking at is a utility knife. Now, this one is this particular one, but any utility knife like this will do. One of the things you'll like is you have two different variations of them. This one has a retractable blade. The other one is a fixed blade. With a fixed blade, with any of these, you need to make sure that you keep you need to make sure that they keep stored if you have small children in the house. Keep them away from, because they will cut, because that's their job. This utility knife is the first item. If you're getting into anything intricate, there is what we call a coping saw. This is really good if you're going to get into cutting trim. There's a trick for that. I'll show you that later on how to do that. This saw right here is really handy for ornate cutting. Does a very good job. I'll give you a tutorial on that later on how to set it up and use it. And then the next thing I'm looking at is this is called a Japanese pull saw. Now there is crosscut saws that you can use but you have to start it at a certain angle and try and hold it in line. Where with this one, what you can do is you can take and do the same thing, but instead of pushing the saw, you get the saw started and you just pull straight back. And basically, as you're pulling it and you're pulling it straight back, it cuts on the backstroke. which makes it a lot simpler. Another thing too is that once you get it started, the blades themselves are very thin. They're about, oh, I don't know, they're less than 1/64 of an inch thick, less than a 32nd of an inch thick, which makes them, once you get a line started, it will follow that line and continue to cut. It actually supports the blade, keeps it from wandering. Very nice saw. It does a really good job. Another favorite tool that I have is the combination square. Now this one is a Starrett. I've fallen in love with Starretts because they're a highly precise tool. And as I said before, I used to work in a machine shop, worked with Starrett for many, many years with that. So I've gotten used to using Starrett tools. They're really on the mark, but you don't necessarily have to spend this kind of money. You can get some. This one's about about $150 for this little square. You can get a Swan, but a Swan for like maybe $5 or $10. But just remember, it's not going to be as accurate as this square. And if you want to check it, I can show you in future videos how to check this square to see how accurate it is. Very handy, very easy to use. You can slide it back and forth right here, and then when you get it into position, you can lock it down with a thumb screw underneath. Okay, you have two angles on it. One side is for 45, the other side is for 90 degrees. Another little trick you can do with these too is if you're out in the middle of a piece of wood, you can take and slide this off. You can slide this off and lay a drill bit right in here, right along this side right here. Right along this side, so you're laying it like this. Lay your drill bit right in there and use this as a drill guide. This will help you to get a really nice square drill hole, both left and right, and forward and back. Okay, works really, really well. I'm really, really pleased with it. A little post note before the ending of the video. I like to throw a little humor, give you something to laugh at. You know, maybe you're having a little bit of a down day. Give you something to kind of put a smile on your face. And if you've got a friend, give them the smile that I just gave you. If you like that, please let us know. You know, if you think they're a little corny and there's no place in the video, then let us know that as well. So here's my video. Here's my joke of the day for you. An old truck driver went into a truck stop. This many years ago. This old truck driver come here. He'd been hauling logs all day long, and he wants himself a cup of coffee. So he walks in there and he says, you know, can I get a cup of coffee? And out steps this old crusty cook. He's a little rough around the edges. He's used to truck drivers, and especially logging truck drivers. I mean, you know, he's one of those kind that if you look at him wrong, he'll snap your head off. So he goes and he gives the guy a grunt and pours him a cup of coffee and turns it on and walks away. Truck driver takes a big old swig of this coffee and spits it out. Oh my goodness, this coffee tastes like mud. Cook says, I don't know why, it was fresh ground this morning. Have a good day.